Hello there, I'm Natalie. So this video is part of a playlist where I show you how I create and upload a kids journal onto the Amazon KDP platform. I discuss every stage of the journey and hope to make it easier for you. So let's jump into this video. I think a really good way to explain the difference between bleed and no bleed is with looking at a magazine or a book. So this has been printed with bleed because the pictures and the images are going right to the edge and you get that crisp clean line. So when the printer has cut off the edges to create the exact right book size for your dimensions, it's giving you that nice clean and crisp line. And then if we look at a book that has been printed without bleed, most likely, you can see why you might choose that, because these images, they don't want them going off the page. They want those crisp clean lines inside of the book. They want the book to have margins and every page to be lined up the same way. So those are two examples of how bleed and no bleed might look. This page is directly from the Amazon website of them explaining to us the file setup and the final trim, what it would look like. So the image there on the left, these lines are what you see when you're inside Amazon KDP and you're putting your interior to be uploaded, and it gives you the option to preview. So you will see this and this. So this image here is a page that has been set up without bleed, and this is the same page that's been set up with bleed. So you can see again, this person wants you to be able to see the edge of the image. This person is happy for the image to go and bleed right to the edge of the page. So this is the final trim line up here. This kind of second line in. This is the trim line. This is the margin. The third line in is the actual margin that you have to work within to make sure your data is within the print range. So over here we can see what the page might look like after it has been printed, no bleed and with bleed. So another quick example of me just showing you how this would work. So no bleed, all of your interior data is within the margins. So this is what your page setup might look like. Nothing is even close to the margins on this page, and it would very easily be trimmed and there'd be no problem. So this is the area that would be trimmed. The black line that you can see remaining, that is the margin that you've got to be within, otherwise you're going to have data that is missing. And the red line is what they will trim off for you to make sure you've got the crisp clean edges and that your book is the exact size that you wanted. If we wanted to make this similar document but with a bleed, we would perhaps create something like this. So we want these flowers at the bottom to reach to the edge of the page. So again, once it's trimmed off, it would give that nice clean edge and we would have the flowers going right towards the edge of the page. So when you see these two pages side by side, no bleed and with bleed, you can really get an idea of why you might pick one over the other. This is from the Amazon website as well, when to choose bleed for your interior. And it's worth noting that even if just one page in your interior requires the bleed, your entire file should be set up with bleed. So even just one image would mean that you would set it up with bleed. And this is a common thing, creates rejections in the upload process, and it can be just so confusing as to why you just constantly get rejected. But it might be that you just had one image that went over the trim margin. So thinking about bleed, this is from the Amazon website. When a book is printed, all pages are trimmed to the selected trim size. So for example, 6x9, 5x7, 8x11. This is done by cutting 0.125 inches from the top, bottom and outside edges. In order for the objects on your page to reach all the way to the edge of the page, those objects must extend past where the page will be trimmed by 0.125 inches. So this means you need to increase your page size beyond where it will be trimmed. So this is so important to know. It basically is telling us that if we are using with bleed, we're actually going to have a larger page size. Let me show you. Again, from Amazon's website, these are the page sizes without bleed and with bleed. So you can see the 0.125 is being added. A 5x8 becomes a 5.125 by 8.25. So we have to know before we even start exactly what size our book will be so that we can get the dimensions correct. And so in this mini series of videos, we are creating a kids journal with drawing space. And this will be an 8.5 by 11 inch book. And it's going to be a without bleed book. So where the green arrows are showing you now will be 8.5 by 11. That will be our page setup. If, however, I'd wanted to choose a with bleed, I would have to make this document 8.625 by 11.25 inches. So again, This is why you need to know what you're doing before you even start designing. So how big are the margins for no bleed? Well, Amazon tells us that for a no bleed setup, a minimum of 0.25 inches from the trimmed edge is what we'll be working with. So let's just jump over to Canva now and I will show you what that actually looks like. So we're over here in Canva now, and I just wanted to show you a couple of options that you've got if you don't want to have a bleed document and you want to utilize all of the space that you've got. So I've just made an untitled design, 8.5 by 11. We've got a couple of options. If we come up here to File, View Settings, Show the Margins. So this is showing us a print margin that is predefined by Canva and it is probably a standard. We can go past this. So obviously, to be really safe and sure, you can make sure that all of your work just sort of clicks to these margins, doesn't go past these margins, and you're definitely going to be safe. But remember, we only needed a 0.25 margin to be safe for a no bleed document. So if we just get rid of that, come back up to File, View Settings, take the margins off and put Print Bleed on. So I don't know exactly what dimensions that print bleed is. It does look more likely to be in line with Amazon KDP, but because I'm not exactly sure, I'll show you the way that you can be really sure. So if we just turn that print bleed off, and if we go Settings, Show Rulers and Margins, I'm just going to zoom in here. You can create your own margin by just pulling down from the margin, holding down with your mouse, not your mice, and we're looking for 0.25. So you see that's calibrating over there on the side. Quite hard to get it exact. 0.253, that's close enough for me. And we'll do it on the other side. 0.247. This margin over here would be 8.25. So those numbers are not exact, but they are going to be certainly close enough. So now if we compare that to what the View Settings Show Margins looks like, you can see we've actually got a lot more space to work within in our document and still be completely safe to have a no bleed document. So the margin is not as tight as you might perhaps think it is we tend to use these Canva inbuilt margins a lot of the time. So that is a little helpful tip for you on how you can make sure that you are utilizing all of the page space. In the next video, we'll be looking at the Kindle Direct Publishing Print Cover Calculator and Templates. This is a brilliant tool. I talk about this regularly on my channel. If you aren't using this at the moment, this is going to be a great video for you to catch on to. So that's the next one in this little mini series.